Just pretend it's like your like little buddy.
You're whispering into the ear, but it's full.
Hug and
Just
love
don't
your
do
mic.
this.
Yeah, don't eat the foam. Because my experience with that is then we have to take you to the vet and they'll hook you up to lots of fluids until you can poop out the foam.
This is true.
Yeah.
Well, luckily my sister-in-law's a vet in town, so
Then we're already prepared.
Yep.
There you go.
Drunk bitches be like. Drunk bitches be like. Drunk bitches be like.
Welcome to Drunk Bitches Be Like. I'm Brandy.
I'm Mindy.
And this is all about two women, a few beers, some tipsy stories, and some drunk ideas.
Welcome.
So we should probably introduce our guest.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, let's do that.
So we are doing a special episode. Not that we're releasing it special, but we do have a special guest. Dee was the person where the entire podcast originated. The idea originated from. Dee and I used to go out every 6 months or so and pick a dive bar, a shitty dive bar. There was one time we went to that really nice bar downtown that sounds like you're going to get off a train because they have really cheap alcohol, even being in Shushy downtown. But we would go to dive bars and we would just start catching up on life, and life would lead to what we saw on current events and shit that pissed us off. And Dee would talk to me about sports, and I don't understand it, but I would be supportive of the context. And she would tell me how good she was at fantasy football, and I have nothing.
You like sports. We're in the middle of March Madness.
Yeah.
yeah, but my team is not in March Madness.
All right, we'll touch on that later because I don't like sports, but I also have a bracket, so.
Nice.
So if you listen
Probably
back,
win then.
there you go.
That's how it always works.
If you listen back to the first episode, you can hear us talk about the concept of where the podcast originated from, and Dee is the person who it originated from, but then you decided to pursue higher education because your current job didn't fucking matter,
No.
but your future could hang in the balance. So
That sounded so dramatic.
yeah. And then dad's died, and it's now plural, and things just, life got in the way. And now
It has a habit of doing that.
yeah, I mean, my family was always at the point that we could at least be humorous about it. When my grandmother passed away, I'm pretty sure the Kettering hospital chaplain thought we were horrible people because she was still in the room with us, and we all gathered coming from different places, because when they call you and your loved one has passed away in the hospital, they don't tell you that. They just say, we think that you should come into the hospital. I've worked in the healthcare field long enough that I was like, fuck.
Yeah.
All right, who else have you called? And they were like, we're going to call your uncle, and we're going to call your mom. And then apparently your family is going to let other people know because we have people in town.
Yeah.
Yep. Bring everybody in. So I got there first, and the nurse greeted me with tears in her eyes and was like, I hate to tell you this, but your grandmother passed away. And I was like, yeah, I gathered.
Yeah. I
You don't
figured
get a
that one
phone
out.
call at 1 o'clock in the morning because
You need to come in and say hi.
Yeah, I didn't think that, you had just screwed something up. I figured something bad had happened. And then the chaplain took my arm, and I am not a religious person, nor was my uncle. My mom was probably getting back into things, and then our cousins are very into it. So the chaplain grabbed me and was like, if there's anything you can do. And I'm like, well, you can stop touching me. Just, not in a bad way. He was just like trying to link arms with me or hug me, and I didn't want that to happen. And the nurse said, can we bring you guys like coffee? And you get snacks. They brought snacks. So
It's funny because when my dad was sick, her dad had already passed away. So she was telling me, like, dad was in the ICU, and she's like, oh, well, when they bring you the comfort cart, she's like, that's pretty. And I was like, what the hell is a comfort cart? And she was like, yeah, it's basically like free coffee and like drinks and snacks and things. And I'm like, all right, well, the day they told us that there was nothing more they could do, and we had to have the discussion if we were going to move him to hospice, I texted her and I was like, they didn't bring us a damn comfort cart, but I mean, like, there's nothing more they can do. So
Yeah. It's always a tough decision, but we were all standing in the room with my grandmother, and then we started trading stories about her because she was a very funny woman.
Yeah.
My grandparents were very religious, and I think I was 3 or 4 years old. It's one of my mom's favorite stories where she told me, Mindy Lynn, you need to pick up your toys. And I said no. And she said, pick up your toys. And I said no. And my grandmother told me, you need to pick up your toys. And I turned around and said, you pick up the goddamn toys. And she laughed. Like rolled around on the floor laughing. And my mom said, you are not helping. But this
That's not what grandparents are for.
This very religious woman found it hilarious. So we were telling stories about her. She had gotten into an accident. She had to have her femur put back together.
Oh, man.
Like 70, she was in her 80s. And up until then, she was still working part-time. So she went from being a seamstress to, she got a job at Taco Bell. She really enjoyed it. I don't know why. She was the person who cleaned up the lobby, and I was always worried I was going to have to go in and fight a motherfucker because I'm like, let me know if anybody's rude to you. I'll show up. And she enjoyed that shit. So they put her femur back together. She had a really hot orthopedic surgeon. Very hard to concentrate on what he was saying at 4 o'clock in the morning because I was like, you're hot.
shit. Same with the ICU doctor of dads.
Yeah.
I'm just like, did you play football? And he was like, yeah, I did at University of Texas. And I'm like, you did?
You have broad shoulders. So you can carry a lot of weight.
Lab coat a little tighter.
So we started telling grandma stories and we were laughing. And I think that put the chaplain off that we were laughing. Her favorite thing was she had a stroke during surgery. And so we went in to see her and I said something to her and she just gobbledygooked it back to me. And then she laughed so she could hear that she wasn't speaking correctly. Like she was saying something in her brain. It was coming out differently, but she was hearing that come back into her head and she would laugh. Aww. Pain medications might have had something to do with that. But then my mom said, when is my birthday? And she said, like July 17th. And she was like, when's my brother's birthday? July 17th. When's Minzy's birthday? July 17th. And she giggled the entire time because she couldn't stop herself from saying it. So then that part cleared up. She had no residuals from the stroke, but that did not stop her from claiming that shit every time something happened. She would be like, I had a stroke, right? I'm like, yeah, Shirley, we know.
Yeah.
Your name's not Shirley, but that's what we called her. So we're telling stories like that and about her hopping through a field to whip the shit out of her nephew's mom and all kinds of things that happen in rural Tennessee when you're growing up. And the chaplain was not having it. He left. So,
Yeah.
And kind of the same thing happened with my dad.
So when dad died, I wanted to do all that, but I've realized that I am literally the black sheep of the family. Like, I mean, I've got the dark sense of humor to where they're like, what's wrong with you? And I'm like, I'm adopted. That's what's wrong. Guys, I'm not like you at all. My brother had a kidney transplant like 6 years ago, I think it was. So he has the anti-rejection meds that he has to take for a lifetime.
Oh, yeah.
And it's a lot of pills. So we were having a family cookout. And we're all sitting out at mom and dad's in the backyard. Like, we've already eaten, so we're sitting around hanging out. And his wife goes to get his meds and brings them to him. And I'm sitting across from him, like, just doing that in front of the family now, huh? And he was like, yep, it's a way of life. And I was like, it's what all addicts say. And my mom smacked me. My one sister-in-law, his wife, if looks could have killed, I'd have been dead. My other sister-in-law looked at me and she's like, what the fuck is wrong with you? And I'm like, it was funny. Like, I don't understand.
You gotta find the humor in life. Otherwise, it's just way too depressing.
That's what I say. I'd rather cry from laughing than from sadness. Like, so you got to find the funny in what you can. And I mean, I look at it as you develop unhealthy coping mechanisms. Like,
It just don't. There was the comedian Lewis Black that always used to talk about if you can't find the funny, if you can't make fun of yourself, then that's when you go crazy. And when you get extreme ideas, because you can't take you're taking yourself too seriously, or you're taking things too seriously. So yeah, I think it leads to some really good grief coping though, because sometimes you laugh so hard that you literally get through the crying, and then you're like, it felt good.
Yeah.
It was cathartic on all levels.
Yeah, I just went to the sweets because, after a funeral, you'd have all this food, and we don't have a large family. So, two of my brothers don't live here, so they weren't taking anything with them. So Mom basically sends all this. Are you going to eat this? I mean, yeah, I'll eat it. And then that turned into whole pies being sent home with me.
Oh, wow.
I'm single, no kids, live alone. So
those pies are
it
just
was
meals.
basically a cherry pie. I'm sitting there watching old Grey's Anatomy. I miss my dad. I'm just eating a cherry pie. Didn't get a plate, just stuck the fork in the pie pan because
of course
I live alone. So nobody else is eating
Nobody's going to judge you.
Oh, you don't have to eat the crust. You can just eat all the middle.
Yeah, and that's pretty much what I did because the crust is gross.
I don't like crust.
Yeah.
Unless it's graham. I like crust.
Okay,
I like
graham
a nice
cracker crust on
crust.
the cheesecakes and things are good.
Yeah.
But regular pie crust, I don't know, it gets hard and crunchy. And
Wait, has anybody made a crust out of the Chessman's cookies or the Biscoff? You
can get Biscoff.
You can get Biscoff cookie butter.
Yeah, I've had that.
Yeah.
It's
so I think if you just crush them up and add a little bit of coconut oil, you could make a pie crust out of it.
If I had a pie crust out of Biscoff, I would eat.
I like to bake on the side.
I know. She makes the best cupcakes, and I tried to talk her into culinary school forever, and she was just like, I don't want to bake for a living because then you're going to take all the fun out of it.
Yeah.
Well, that, and currently I'm a hairstylist, so I'm in school for a sit-down job because I'm tired of being on my feet
all day long. Yeah, that's got to be tiring.
And I've been cutting hair for 22 years in August. Yeah, I'll be with my company 21 years next month.
Oh, wow.
It's time to move on.
Yeah,
Fuck them.
Pretty much. Even more so right now.
It has earned some wonderful things. Took me to Kentucky Motor Speedway, not just because she needed a sober driver. And that's in question as to whether that actually happened or not.
Well, you also sat in the parking lot for fucking ever.
I think we actually napped for a while. Just put your seat back. So yeah, you took me to Kentucky Motor Speedway. We got to go back and tour the NASCAR garages.
Nice.
Yeah, but that was the bad thing was though is so nobody is a fan except I think I was you know about NASCAR,
right?
But
not
out
like you
of
do.
No, but out of the group of people that were invited and got tickets, nobody knew anything. So we're on the tour and she's like, this is the fuel, and I'm like, where's Dale Jr.? Take me to the drivers and the cars. I don't, because I had been there for an IndyCar race, which is open wheel.
Yeah.
And the garage passes for that is with IRL, you have free reign. I'm literally touching Elio Castroneves' car, and the engineer's like, excuse me. And I'm like, oh, sorry.
My bad.
Whereas NASCAR, you're behind
Where is he so I can touch him?
Yeah.
I was stalking Sam Hornish Jr. that day.
Very nice.
And Danica Patrick, this was when she still raced, and she told me to move, and I looked at my dad and I was like, who's this fucking bitch telling me to move? And he was like, that'd be Danica Patrick. And I was like, oh. And then my brother took off after her. So
yeah, because he was super obsessed.
Yeah.
Even if you don't like her, I have to say this. There was when she went back to IndyCar racing, after NASCAR didn't really work out, but she was still doing it. She went back to IndyCar racing, and the Italian chick, violated some racing rules.
She wasn't Italian. She was Japanese. Milka. I can't remember her last name, but yeah, that was the thing about Danica. She would get up and it didn't matter. Danny Weldon, who's passed away now, he died in a wreck, but she got in his face, and I'm like, you can't do that in NASCAR. Those rednecks will knock you out.
Oh yeah.
I mean,
but she went after that chick, and I was like, and the girl was like the girliest girl, oh, whatever. And I was like, we all saw you do a bad thing.
Yeah.
She has every right to whip your ass. And I think she might be able to.
I mean, I think it's funny that, so she dated quarterback Green Bay Packers quarterback Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah.
And they broke up.
He's a nightmare.
Wait, Danica Patrick did?
Yeah.
Oh.
They dated for a while. That was
The last I kept up with her love life was when she was dating one of the other NASCAR drivers.
yeah. So was it Aaron Rodgers was dating Olivia Munn?
Yeah.
And then they broke up. He got with Danica.
Okay.
They broke up. Now he's engaged to
Shailene.
Yes,
Shailene
Woodley. And I'm like,
Fucking fast.
yeah, poor Danica. Like you,
Because she got together with that other NASCAR
you
driver.
froze
She
your
was with
ass
that
off
other
in
NASCAR
Green Bay.
driver forever.
Yeah, she left her engineer husband for that dude.
Yeah, which that whole thing, I was just like, this seems like a publicity stunt. And then they were together for way too long, and then he grew a mullet, and I was like, nah.
I feel like a mullet's not unusual in NASCAR.
It's not. I mean,
It's
it
not
wasn't
usual
back,
right now.
No, it's not usual right now. That's the problem. It was very old school NASCAR, and I was like, all right.
Who's the little guy that you got to talk to when we were down at
Casey
Kentucky?
Kane.
Yeah.
He
so
seemed nice.
one
He
thing
is
that,
very nice.
one thing that Dee knew that I did not know is how little these motherfuckers are.
Oh, they're tiny.
So like when I went to professional wrestling, when I went to I don't even think it was WWE at the time. It was probably still WWF.
Oh, yeah.
And when I went to one of those, and I didn't realize how big all of them were. Like even the small guys are 6'1", 6'2".
Well,
we
at the-
talked about seeing Al
At the
Snow.
WWE or the WWF, they are. But if you go to like the lower ones, like ROH and stuff, that's why they're not in WWE, because they're not tall enough.
Little dudes. There's a guy I follow
They're
on.
still huge, like massive dudes. Like, but
There's a guy I follow on TikTok. His wrestling name is Montana. He's hot. And he's got like braids, and he's off from like wrestling because he has a knee injury, but he's 6'7",
Oh, wow.
6'8". His most famous videos are him and his crew doing the Don't React videos. And every time it's like, what's that song? Back off, I'll take you on. Headstrong. It's Headstrong by Trapped. There we go. We're not paying for that. It was less than 6 seconds, and I'm not making a profit on it. So he, like, every time something like that comes on, he always reacts. And I think it's because in the ring, everything is heavy metal, hard metal. It's just that thing.
Yeah.
And whereas all of his friends are like, bro, what the hell is happening with you? Like, you have to know he listens to these things. You guys didn't just meet him.
Oh,
Yeah.
it's that reminds me of the SNL like digital short where it's like two black people are in a all white bar, or it's like your black friend.
Right.
I think was the whole premise of it, and they start playing Sweet Caroline in a bar.
Oh God.
And so like the two black people like see each other from across the room, and they're like, what is going on?
And then the rest of the
And
bar is
everybody
going
is like
insane.
bum 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 and like singing along, and they're like, no idea what is going on.
I just walked into a cult.
And then I laughed because I sang along with Sweet Caroline because I know all the lyrics.
Yeah. So one of the things that we have alluded to but not pointed out.
Oh yeah.
Dee is black.
Well, I'm African is what I like to say. I'm biracial, black and white. So like President Obama, you know, we're African.
Except nobody's asking for your birth certificate to prove you're a citizen.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But I was adopted when I was 6 weeks old to a white middle class family in a suburb of Dayton. So I've had a little unique upbringing, I guess. So it's been interesting over this last summer was probably the most interesting.
Yeah.
Dad will be gone 2 years in May, but he was a sheriff for one of the local counties.
Right.
So, you know, I was raised by a cop, and I've had not so pleasant experiences with police officers. And at the height, when what happened in Minnesota with George Floyd and all the protesting, I think that kind of brought everything in our family to a head. Like, I no longer speak to one of my brothers because he moved to BFE, Georgia, and apparently forgot his sister's biracial because some of the things he says, and I'm like, bro, this don't wear off. Like, I can't wipe it off.
Right.
Like, and what you're saying is highly offensive.
It's not like a fake tan. You're not a Kardashian.
No.
Yeah.
And my mom keeps thinking that it's just a disagreement and we can't get along. And I'm like, it's a little bit bigger than that.
I mean, I can imagine feeling betrayed. You had talked about him when we were pre-gaming about how he used to be such an advocate for you and beat the shit out of kids in the neighborhood because they didn't realize the little black kid belonged to his family.
It's funny because before he moved to Georgia, we were incredibly close. Like, so I'm the youngest of 3. My oldest brother is 14 years older than I am. So he's in his 50s. He's been married for 30 years, my niece will be 29. She's married with 2 kids. Then there's the middle one, and he's 9 years older. So he used to take me everywhere, like everywhere.
So are you the only adopted one, or are they both?
No.
Okay. So
the 2 olders are mom and dad's biological kids. Mom wanted a girl. Apparently, originally, mom wanted like 12 kids, and she just couldn't. Yeah. They struggled getting pregnant with the 2. So mom wanted a girl. They picked me, and dad got somebody to watch sports with. Basically is what happened.
Nice.
And then they were also foster parents for 30 years. Okay. They retired. Dad died in that May. They had finished fostering in that December. Okay. And so they were well in their 70s, still raising babies.
Wow.
So they had 88 foster kids over a 30-year span.
Wow, that's impressive.
When my oldest brother did the eulogy, he was like, I'm the oldest of 93. Aww. Because you have us 3 and then the 88 foster kids. And then my sophomore year of high school, my aunt passed away of cancer, my mom's sister. And then a year and a half later, her husband had a massive heart attack in his sleep. So my mom was willed my 2 cousins. So we're a blended family, but my parents were married for over 50 years to each other.
That's impressive.
So, yeah. I recently found out in one of my classes that apparently I lived in a fairy tale. I'm in school for legal studies, and I'm taking family and criminal law this semester. And so family law, it's a lot of divorce, it's basically what we talk about. And we were talking about our own families. And so one girl's like, yeah, my mom and dad got divorced when I was 3, and I was the go-between between them. And one guy's like, oh, my parents are still married, but they fought all the time. And, everybody kind of goes on with their family, and they get to me, and they're like, so what about your family? And I was like, oh, yeah, my mom married my dad when she was 18, and he was like 20, and they were married until my dad died. My mom still lives in the same house that they bought when they got married. And then our professor was like, what about arguments? And I was like, oh, I never heard my parents fight.
Yeah.
Like,
no,
never.
It sounds like your parents are very similar to mine. My parents did argue, but not in front of me because they were not about to let me split them apart. Yep. And also, it wasn't my job to know adult things.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I asked mom once when I was an adult, I was like, did y'all go outside? Like, because I mean, you had to have disagreements because like, that's just married life. Like you're, putting 2 individuals together. So you had to have disagreements, but we just never heard it. Dad would joke and say that he worked second shift, mom worked first. So he would say that he knew mom was mad when the note she would leave him, like filling in on the day, was like crumpled. And so that was like the running joke that, your mom was really mad. But I mean, a sarcastic comment here and there, but we never heard that. And so one of the guys was like, you grew up in a fairy tale. And I'm like, apparently I did. I call it stable is what I call it. Like, I mean,
I think that it's been said a lot over the past couple of years as people come to be a little more cognizant of what they're doing to their children, which is, I think, some aspects of my childhood I did have to recover from. But when it comes to my parents, I did not have to recover from my childhood. It was what I think a lot of people would want. I thought it was boring. Like my friends were like their parents were getting divorced. I was like, you get 2 homes and they're just guilty buying you shit. Shit. I get shit when school starts and on my birthday. That's not true. My mom and dad gave me whatever I wanted because I was an only child.
Well, I was like an only child because
Right.
my brothers are
We're
so much older. Yeah.
And you were the only female, so
And I'm the chosen one. So
Yeah.
I was spoiled very.
it's not like they can give you your brother's hand-me-downs. Although some of them you probably would have been like, score. So we come from this same area, which is very small town, and
But I'm the bigger city out of the
you
two
are the
small
bigger
towns.
city. Whereas my entire high school had 400 to 500 kids.
My
We're-
graduating class had 370,
Yeah.
I think. But it was still like it was like 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon where I'm from. Like, I might not have known them, but like my best friend would have known who they were.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't consider myself like popular, but apparently people knew who I was. Like,
That's
it
always
was-
dangerous.
Yeah, it
That's
was
how I
one of-
felt like I went through high school.
It was one of those I didn't realize it until after high school, and people were like, "Oh yeah, I knew who you are," and I'm like, "How?" No.
What do you know about me? No.
Yeah.
So was it because your school was more diverse, although that school is not diverse. I mean, it's not like 50-50.
No.
It's still rural. And despite the fact that there's a city in the middle of it, it's still rural. It's not much of a city.
So, I mean, growing up, I guess, I distinctly remember we had in my elementary school, because the majority of the African Americans who live where I'm from, they all live on one side of town. The town's not very diversified.
Yeah.
It's pretty much like the lower income is on one side of town. And I remember it was like 5th grade, and there were African American twin boys, and they made fun of me because my parents were white and I wasn't white, and they just thought it was hysterical and of course it upset me because I'm like, what are you talking about? That's like my mom and dad. Like, why are you making fun of them? Like, who cares? And I don't know. It was I was too white for the black kids, but I was too black for the white kids. And I don't know. It was one of those, like, a lot of mixed people feel like that. Like, you're not accepted on either side. Like, because the older I got, then it was like, oh, you got the good hair. Everybody got hair. Like, I mean, you take care of it, it's good.
Right.
Like, that's just the way it is.
You got hair. Congratulations.
Right.
My
And-
partner doesn't have shit.
And then,
I mean,
or
it's
it'd
on
be
the back
like,
of his
well, you're light skin. So, like, you're dark skin. What difference does it make? I mean, yeah, and that's why when people say that black people can't be racist, I call bullshit on, because I understand for they're a minority, so therefore they're not in a position of power, but that's not how I look at racism. Like, if you treat somebody badly because they're outside of your race, that's racism. Sorry.
Yeah.
Like,
Well, in the community that, again, you're not black enough to be a part of, is them bringing up your skin tone. It's something that has also been being talked about broadly over the past year, which is colorism. So dark skin, light skin, opposed to each other. This is pretty, that's not pretty, which the only thing it's saying, and I'm white, so I don't get to feel one way or the other, but I will say that looking at it, I'm like, damn, you are being pitted against each other by advertising from white people to say the more Anglo that you look, the prettier you are. And there's a part of the community that fits that is buying into it, I guess, on both sides.
well, it's the same when it comes to other races too, where I feel all minorities should support each other. Like, right now with what's going on in the Asian community with the racism against Asians and the brutality that's going on. And there are a lot of African Americans who feel like
Justified.
or they don't like us, so why should we? And I'm like, yeah, that's the media and society tearing us apart. Like, I mean, of anybody, like the Japanese here in the United States who have been here for years, I mean, should sympathize. We should empathize with them because, I mean, in the 40s, they were put in internment camps. Like, that's...
Which is ridiculous.
Right. So, I mean, it's one of those where, I mean, I don't know the black side of my ancestry, but like most people, you assume you came over on a slave ship. You know, your ancestors came on a slave ship. So I'm like, I mean, they were treated terribly. And it's the same in like the 70s and the early 80s with Iranians who were treated terribly because of, you know, the hostage situation. And I'm like, just because they're Iranian doesn't mean that they, you know, like.
Well, yeah, just because also when 9/11 happened, just because you have a Middle Eastern name or you're Muslim, it doesn't mean that like you flew a plane into the towers and you should not be. That's where like the in New York when they were having some issues when the mosques were getting firebombed or whatever, the Jewish community came out and were like, this is not okay. We'll put people here. We'll help you get in and out. And then I think one of the large synagogues or temples in New York, I think it's New York, don't rely on that. Go look it up in the news. But they were also firebombed, and the Muslim community came out and was like, we will help you.
Which you would think when people of different religions, especially Muslims and Jewish people coming together, that, you know, Israel and Palestine could make things, you know, work a little bit.
Yeah.
Like, I understand why, but still, it's like, I mean,
it's still such a bubble because there's not a third party buffering it. There's no, in some cases, there's no us to be against them. There's no them to be against, to band together. It's just then you each are the us and the them in it, which is kind of what it felt like a lot this summer, which shit boiled over. It's been a long time coming.
Well, and I guess like my big issue with a lot of stuff, it's not so much the overt racism, like that's expected. Like, I mean, I've been called the N-word in the last 4 years with the hard R more than I have, like, I mean, I could count on my hand, you know, prior to the past administration, people were emboldened just to say what they want to say. And even where I live now, some of the shit that was said to me, I'm like, bro, you're poor too. Like, I don't understand. I don't understand like why I look at it like this: hate me because I like Ohio State, or because I'm a Tennessee Titans fan, or like UK basketball, or, you know, like find another reason though to dislike me than because I appear to the public other than white, because a lot of people are confused on my race. I've been asked if I'm Hawaiian and various other things, and I'm like, nope.
Yeah,
not.
I mean,
mostly
you've got that Samoan vibe.
But I don't. It's overwhelmingly English and Irish. Honestly, there's a little German in there. And
me too. High five. No.
It's like I'm over 50% white, and then there's like 30% like from Africa. Like,
I'm sure there were people who were like, "How'd that happen?" And you were like,
"I don't know."
Slaves and slave masters. That's exactly how that happened.
Yeah, and well, that's the funny thing is I've been watching. I've been streaming on Prime. Finding Your Roots, the PBS genealogy show with Henry Louis Gates, which is a fantastic show. And you can add PBS on your Amazon Prime for like a couple of bucks a month. And then you can stream anything, which is great.
No, don't tell me that. I'll be watching Masterpiece Theater for the rest of my life. And that's fantastic. The bougiest white thing to do.
It's so great. But so I've been rewatching Finding Your Roots. And one thing that I found interesting as a country that has been founded upon immigration, like, I mean, it doesn't matter if it was the 1800s, the 1900s, the 2000s, 2020s.
Suck at letting immigrants in.
Yeah.
But we treat immigrants like crap.
Oh, terribly.
Like, once you're in, you're good. And then it's like, screw the rest of you. Because I was watching an episode recently with the guy who played Monk on the USA TV show.
Anthony, that guy.
Yeah, but so
I want to say Scalera, but that's not.
I just saw him in Star Quest the other day or whatever it was.
So he's
Galaxy Quest.
Galaxy Quest. That's
he's Lebanese, I
Okay.
think.
Yeah.
And
his brother invented the. It's a thing that dissolves poop. You like
Really?
pump water into
All right,
it.
I just want to let everybody know Mindy's just like pumping her hand up and down.
Okay, look, up and down like a bike tire, not back and forth like a shake weight.
But
hell
there
is his
was
name?
so they immigrated to like his family immigrated to like Wisconsin area, and I guess they became like traveling salesmen, and they showed like newspaper articles of how they talked about Middle Easterns then, and all I kept thinking was, and I'm getting ready for work, you know, watching Finding Your Roots, and I'm like, damn, it's 2021 and we still haven't changed that conversation like at all. And then I think the one that I probably yelled at the most, because I'm one of those, like I talk back to the TV.
Yeah.
It's what happens when you
Way
live
to
alone.
perpetuate a stereotype. See.
I mean, it happens, but you should watch me watch football sometime. It's really bad.
Oh no, my partner's mother is apparently the filthiest mouthed woman when she's yelling about the Browns.
So,
Well,
I
yeah,
mean,
because they're the Browns.
they beat my team this year.
That's
so,
true. They did do okay.
But so there's an episode where it's Paul Ryan, Marco Rubio, and Tulsi Gabbard. Oh. And so all I can say is apparently, thank goodness Marco Rubio's Cuban, because, you know, wet foot, the dry foot rule, like once you get one dry foot on land, and the way he views immigration politically, I'm just like, glad there wasn't somebody like you in office when your parents came.
Yeah, right.
I mean, and it's the same with Paul Ryan. Paul Ryan's family, I mean, they're all from, you know, mostly Irish.
Yeah.
But, and it's like that.
But there was always a point in time where, I mean, it was never as horrific for anyone who would be considered white. If you're Italian, you're white. If you're Irish, you're white. It was not like it was when we were like stealing people from countries and then making up shit about what that was.
But the Irish had their own stuff.
Right.
Irish not need apply.
Yeah,
and,
the Irish-
you know,
the Italians
like,
did. Yeah.
Yeah.
Italians,
And, you know, I mean,
We listen, I don't know, I think you do listen to the one crime show where the guy is constantly referring to him and his family by a slur, and he was like, I can do it, you can't.
oh, yeah. It's small town murder.
Small town murder, yeah.
Well, and if you look at history, though, like
By the
every
way, I
time
can
we-
say his last name is Petrogallo.
Yes. I spelled it correctly too.
High five.
And I think it's because my friends who are Italian.
Yeah.
Like, it's the only, and I was like, wait a minute, there's an extra something in here somewhere, because that's how I won't say their name, but it doesn't, the way it sounds, it's not spelled the way it sounds.
Yeah. Tony Shalhoub was who we were talking
Tony
about earlier.
Shalhoub, that's
but I'm
who it
sorry,
was.
I cut you off, Brandy.
No, you're fine. I was just gonna say, like, if you look at like our history in the United States, and like whenever we've had an influx of immigrants from any particular country, like there's always a period of
Oppression?
advancement. Well, oppression, especially with the immigrants, but there's also a period of advancement when it comes to like the United States and like things we build, or like you know, the Renaissance, the Industrial Revolution. Those are all things that were like advanced by having an influx of immigrants come into the country. So it's like, I feel like our history is like horrible, because like every time we get immigrants that come into the country, we treat them terribly, but they do great things for the country, and then it's like, okay, so we're awful human beings, but they come in, they work their hardest, they help us advance as a country, but then we treat them like shit, and then it's like, okay, and we forget that happened, and then the next time it happens, it's like, oh, we don't like you either because you're immigrants, and they come in, they do something better for the country.
Yeah, well, it was like watching that Finding Your Roots. I don't remember her name, but she's a character actress. She's been on like Law and Order. She's African American. Sometimes she has her hair in braids. I think right now she's on that Chicago Med show.
Do you mean the one who was the chief on
Law and Order?
Yeah.
I
know who
believe
you're
so.
talking about.
I know who you're
It's one of
talking
those,
about.
like, if you see her, you're like, yes, she's in everything.
She
great.
was the captain, and she got
Yes.
cancer,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
they went
yeah.
through the breast
So
cancer story.
Her episode,
Jesse L. Martin. Sorry.
Her episode is like crazy. So she found out. I mean, I laugh when I even think about it because so her slave ancestors were owned by Georgetown University.
Shit.
So Jesuit priests left Europe due to persecution and then came here and then persecuted a complete race of people.
And then bought slaves.
They bought and sold slaves.
Jesus.
They sold over 200 slaves for like $100 and some odd $1,000, which I can't remember correctly, but in today's money, it's over like $1 million. And historians now say that due to which that sale was approved by the Vatican. Because of that sale, that's why Georgetown University still exists to this day, is because they sold human beings. Priests sold human beings after fleeing persecution.
And I guess they saw it as, I mean, I'm not going to make excuses for them, but you were being persecuted for your religion, which doesn't give you the right to come over and persecute somebody for profit.
No.
And they've talked about it for a long time. The economic structure of slavery was beneficial to those who owned slaves, but it was not. I mean, it was never okay. That sounded like I was about to say it was okay,
but it was only beneficial to a small portion, a small group of people down south. Like the whole entire South didn't benefit from it,
right?
Because if they did, then we might not be talking like we are. Because
it's just the land.
The South would have won.
We are we are about 4 years away from not being able to talk again.
And it's funny because a lot of people down south refer to us as Yankees, like, because we're from the north, and I just want to be like, y'all lost the war, you're a Yankee too.
Right.
Like, I mean, it's high time to get over that shit.
Yeah.
That was the big problem I had with the attempted coup on our capital, because that's what it was. It was an attempted coup.
It was insurrection. There are trees.
Was the fact that I mean, I'm not Jewish, but to see people walk around with like Camp Auschwitz, like hoodies on, like it's
the fact that
like it's a summer camp.
The fact that somebody was selling it on fucking Etsy.
Yeah.
Well, I think that comes from
Etsy's supposed to be nice, although they've got a whole fucking. I accidentally wandered into like naked Etsy and I didn't know it existed.
Well, Etsy's like their own, like they're just individuals who set up their own shop. So like anybody can really go on Etsy, even though it has like this front facing great marketing and everything else. But like there are a huge amount of people, which I didn't realize this until the past couple of years. There's a huge amount of people that don't think the Holocaust exists or think it's a real thing.
Which, and I think is nutty,
mind-boggling to me.
And because I remember like back before Maury Povich only did paternity tests.
Oh yeah, back when it was a legitimate show.
Yeah. I want to say
Sally Jesse Raphael, Montel.
Yeah, all of one of them.
Montel Williams, not Montel Jordan.
Yeah, I love Montel Williams.
But one of them did like the whole point was to pair up a Nazi Holocaust denier with a Jewish person.
Okay,
a Holocaust survivor.
I don't think they were a survivor, but they were a Jewish person.
Right. I don't think they'd want to do that to a survivor. That would just be...
they go into... a lot of the survivors go into school to discuss that.
Yeah.
But the hatred that was spewed from the Nazi, the guy was like, I don't know. He basically feared for his safety.
Right.
So they took him to the National Holocaust Museum. Yeah. And like... If I remember correctly, it was all made up, which kind of reminds me of QAnon followers nowadays.
Jesus.
Like, I mean, it's just...
Nobody is eating children from Wayfair.
I'm just waiting for, wasn't it supposed to be like the military tribunals were supposed to start like a couple of weeks ago, and Trump was supposed to
March
be
4th?
inaugurated.
They have now become the fucking evangelical Armageddon is coming people. It's going to be here on June 84th.
Well, I heard they started rejecting Trump now because like the things that they said were going to happen didn't end up happening, and so now they're like denying the fact that he was ever a part of it and that he's like the false whatever.
Yeah. I I know a lot of the
100% guarantee you.
insurrectionists are very angry with him.
Yes.
I know
And
that
I'm like-
100% Chrissy Teigen is not eating children. I can tell you that because she's my best friend.
And I'm sorry, but
She's
I do
not.
not believe that Tom Hanks is an awful human being and he's being a great citizen because he's
so-
trying to escape from.
So I actually, all right, I have this friend that I went to high school with.
And we're using the term friend like loosely.
Yeah,
Like you were
'cause
friends until she got crazy 5 years ago.
Yeah,
He got crazy 5 years ago.
Yeah, and the only reason I keep him on Facebook is sometimes just the screenshot and send to like other friends to laugh. And then there are times where I'm like, I can't today. Today has just been a stressful day, and I just can't with you. But he is deep in on the conspiracy.
Is he in on like the Jewish space lasers too?
I don't know if it's that far because I haven't had a full-on conversation with him in probably the last 5 years since I moved to your house, actually.
Yeah.
Her tenant that she spoke about last episode, I'm that tenant. So
My poor tenant who lives in my shit house.
So I like it. It's got
not
a clawfoot bathtub.
I am not a slumlord. I am just delinquent in painting things.
But so when I moved, and it's pretty much probably the last time I've had like a full on conversation with him, but a guy that I grew up with, we've been friends since we were in kindergarten. He will get into, I think eventually he had to stop following on Facebook because at first it was like funny for my buddy where he would antagonize, and then the other person would start sending it, like DMing him like the nonsense crazy shit and he was like, I'm really worried about his mental health. I had to unfollow him just because like it's bad. He was like, I didn't realize he had gone that far off into the deep end. But so what was it? He was talking about on the day of the Capitol riot. Did you guys hear about what came out about Obama? And so I was like, I clicked on it because I'm like,
It's clickbait for a reason.
It's my curiosity, and it was like one of those stupid YouTube videos of, where they're, and I'm like, dude, like, I don't understand. I'm not supposed to believe like actual journalists who have sources backing up their story and things like that. That's all fake news and fake media. But I'm supposed to believe some like robotic voice from, over like from a YouTube channel. And I think that's been like the funniest thing about like when you have a conversation with somebody and they're like, yeah, but I saw on YouTube, bro.
Yeah.
Like, can't have this conversation anymore.
You're watching the wrong things on YouTube. You need to just watch the chick who does her makeup and talks about murder stories, or the English guy who tells murder stories.
And so I listen to I'm a big podcast fan, and I'm a Joe Rogan.
Well, thank you.
I listen to Joe Rogan, and it's funny because I think a lot of times he gets a bad rap from a lot of different people. Yes, he is very much a frat bro. There are some times where I'm like, dude, really? Like, come on, Joe. But the thing that I like about him is he has a very diverse group of people that come on. What got me going on is I like certain comedians. A lot of them, as Mindy would call her, frat bro comedians.
Yeah,
but I love them. They make me giggle.
I can't say much because most of the comedians I like are people that don't make anybody else laugh, but me, like fucking, I forget what his name is. We're just going to bypass that. But then also British comedians that my dad would have referred to derogatorily. And I was like, how do you not like Jimmy Carr or Jack Whitehall?
I love Jack Whitehall.
Oh, he's a child.
Not only that, but he is so cute.
Oh, he is.
Russell Howard's by far my favorite comedian right now. He's British.
Yes.
And he's delightful.
He's a little combative about the sobriety. I mean, I get. No, Russell Brand is who I'm thinking.
You're thinking Russell Brand. Yeah, no. Russell Howard, he's very I like his comedy because he's really funny, but he's also very he's one of those guys that
I like thinkers.
he's a thinker, and he's not. I would not put him with the frat boys because he definitely like is a champion for women.
Yeah.
And so a lot of his comedy is centered around things he doesn't understand why people do things about women. And he's like, I don't get this. But he also has somebody come out in a giant blow up penis costume on stage with him while he's like doing his bit, so
here's the frat boys, like frat boy comedy is I am a huge fan of Bert Kreischer, the Machine.
I like Bert.
I love Bert.
I like Bert. He's funny. He makes fun of himself.
Yeah, he does. And then I'm a big
His
fan
wife
of
is a saint.
Yes. And then I like Tom Segura.
So basically, you like Bert Kreischer's friends.
Well, yeah, but I found Bert last.
Oh,
though.
really?
Yeah. So because of Rogan listening, I don't like Rogan's comedy. Like, I don't find Joe Rogan funny at all.
I liked him a long time ago.
But I don't know. Sometimes his comedy just comes across as too aggressive. Like, I'm not an MMA person.
Yeah.
Like, I like sports, but that's just not. I think Conor McGregor's hot. That's about the extent of my MMA knowledge.
He's a douche.
He is, but like most hot guys. He's
a racist douche. But anyway.
I didn't say I needed to marry him. It's like Gronkowski. Just sit there and look pretty.
Yeah.
I don't need you to talk.
I feel the same way with Brady. I've said you've known this. The only thing I know about football are some big names.
Yeah.
And when Brady was starting to get big, like, he looks stupid.
I love Brady.
He might not be. I'm sorry. He might not be, but he
So,
literally looks like, where's the ball?
I'm the only
I'm
reason,
also a Michigan fan, and he was a Michigan quarterback.
Jesus.
So I know.
It's okay. It's a really great school. Their football team sucks.
It is. I like the school better than football, but you know.
I remember one of my friends asked, she was like, if they gave you a full ride to U of M, would you go? And I was like, yes. And I would wear scarlet and gray every damn day. She was like, seriously? And I was like, it's a great school and it's very expensive. So
Yeah.
It's
you're going to
terribly
give me
expensive.
free school, I'm going.
And they do not give like out of state scholarships because I went and asked, and they were like, "We don't need you," and I was like, "Okay."
So one of my friends,
But I love you.
So one of my friends, her family, like her dad is a U of M graduate, and a couple other family members, and she's from Cleveland originally, and so she married one of my buddies, and I was talking to her dad, and I was like, she met my friend at Ohio State. And I was like, so how did you feel when your daughter came to you and said, Dad, I want to go to Ohio State? And he was like, in-state tuition, out-of-state tuition, in-state one, and it's still the Big Ten.
Yeah. Oh no!
Like,
I went to
that's
Ohio
how we
State.
rolled.
I still got to watch Michigan football, but I went to Ohio State. But I did not dare wear anything Michigan on there because I would have gotten.
Oh no, you totally would have.
I would have gotten the crap beat out of me. I had a boyfriend at the time who had a Columbia jacket that was just navy blue. Didn't have any logos on it, but it was a Columbia. He got chased down one day on campus.
So one of my really good friends, who is an attorney, which comes in handy with my school.
Yeah.
But when he was undergrad and in law school,
Yeah, in case he listens to this, thank you for helping my friend.
yeah,
It's not really helping them. Those people are still horrible.
but I had met him when he was an undergrad and big U of M fan, and I bought him one year for his birthday. He wanted a new Michigan hat, so I was like, I'll buy it for you. So I got it for him, and he wore it to Heinegate when Heinegate was going on.
Oh, no.
And so it was Michigan Ohio State game in Columbus, and he wore it to Heinegate, and
That is the
some chick took it off his head and threw it into the crowd. And he was like, told me, and I was like, I'm more angry than you are. I was like, first off, who touches people that you don't know? And second off, like, no,
Yeah.
like, you don't know.
Yeah, I was always so I also went to Purdue for a year.
Oh,
and then I
nice.
transferred back to Ohio State.
Great engineering school.
Yeah, which I was not an engineer, which is why I transferred away from there. Engineers, not great socializers. But so,
I'm friends with a lot of them.
yeah, I am too. I'm related to a lot of them. But they're fantastic. But I got to watch a lot of Big Ten football because I went to Big Ten schools, which was always great. I will say Purdue, the fans were okay, not awesome. and I've only been to one Michigan game before, but I was on the field, so I wasn't really with the fans. But when I was at Ohio State and the games that I would go to, I would always root for Ohio State. And then when they were playing
because the
Michigan,
fans are assholes.
they're terrible.
Yeah,
Terrible.
My buddy, he'll go when they play in Columbus.
Yeah.
He'll go, and the last game, the one where they got beat 60, it was the revenge tour that didn't happen.
Yeah.
He said that was one of the first years he had actually been around like decent Buckeye fans. Cause I texted him, I was like, man, how's it going?
Yeah.
Cause I've heard the horror stories.
Oh, yeah.
And he was like, actually, this guy bought me and my girlfriend a beer to help ease the pain because like it was just, and he can be a good sport. Like he can be a dick, but most of the time he's a good sport. But no, I've been there where it's the same with like, I'm a Titans fan for NFL, and I've been down to Cincinnati for the games, and half the time been around some really great people.
Yeah.
And then the other half, it's like, yo, bro, I'm a girl. Why are you getting so aggressive with me?
Right.
Like, first off, I'm like, is your ego hurt because I know more about football than you do? Or like, I don't know what your problem is. Now, the one time where people were really mean, I deserved it. I got really drunk.
Oh, no way.
Was drunk before we even went to the game.
I can't imagine.
Because I wasn't driving, so it didn't matter.
Yeah, I've been that person taking you somewhere.
But so I pre-gamed on, get to my friend's house with my, 18 pack of Bud Light, and I'm drinking as she's finishing getting ready. And I'm like, we don't have time now to go get breakfast. And that was the whole point, is so I could eat breakfast before, I'd start drinking. So I just started drinking, didn't eat. And we get to the tailgating place, and I'm still just drinking because I drank the whole way down to Cincinnati. And we get to the stadium, and I start drinking, and the game progresses, and when you're at a game, like, you're not getting up and you're not moving around, so you're pretty much like either standing or you're sitting, and you don't also realize how much you've had to drink either because you're sitting in one spot. So in NFL games, they cut off beer sales at the end of the third quarter, so it's getting to be the end of the third quarter. I have 2 beers already. And I look at my friend, I was like, I need you to hop down there and get me 2 more beers, because in 5 minutes, they're going to cut off beer sales. And she's like, you already have 2 beers. And I was like, in an entire fourth quarter to drink them all. So she...
Don't be judgy. Get to it.
Yeah. So she got me my 2 extra beers, and my team lost badly, and we were around some terrible Bengals fans who just wanted to rub salt in the wound.
Right.
Well, that time I was pretty hammered, and I'm yelling at Bengal fans downtown Cincinnati, fuck you, Bengal fans, go fuck yourselves. Like, you've won 2 games this year. You act like you won the Super Bowl. Congratulations on winning a third, get a first round, the first pick in the draft. And then I proceeded to trip and fall in the middle of downtown Cincinnati.
So cool.
Yeah, it was bad. So my friend props me up on a street light, and she's like, stay there. I'm getting us a cab. And then I puked out the car on 75.
Oh, fuck.
After I got into an argument with the guy on 75. So we're stuck in traffic, like traffic jam. And, you're really drunk and not really feeling very well. So I'm like, I'm just going to roll my window down and lay my head on the window. And she's like, I think that's best. And I'm like, all right. Well, I'm in all my Titans gear, and the guy in the car next to us is like, who day? And I was like, fuck you, and fuck you, fuck your Bengals. And Then he starts jawing at me, and my friend just pushes me back, and she's like, "Sir, she is really drunk right now. Can you just be the adult here and stop? Because she is not."
I'm gonna guess the answer was no. No, he could not.
He actually rolled up his window.
Did you then puke on it?
No, that was later down on 75 when we were actually moving. It was not good.
You are, how much younger are you than I am?
I'll be 40 this summer.
Yeah, so you're much younger than this. There was a person I used to know from your town. He was dating a friend of mine, and we had gone down to Joker's when Joker's Comedy Club existed. Mm-hmm. They did not have a very good carding policy. I mean, they carded, but
yeah. I saw Greg Warren there.
Yeah, I also grew up in the time where you could just break the lamination on your driver's license and change the year, and then seal it back up.
Really?
So, yeah.
That sounds like awesome times.
Beautiful. Yeah, they weren't the printed pieces of plastic we get. It was a piece of paper laminated between two laminate sheets.
So you could just cut it open and relaminate it.
Yeah.
Man.
Yeah.
You guys had it easy.
I had a driver's license that was a little
technology.
I had to buy fake things.
No, I had a driver's license that was just a little. It looked like it had been water damaged, and it was just water damaged in the right way.
Yeah. I had an older sister, so I wasn't that terrible. But
I couldn't buy a fake ID because I cut all the bartenders' hair in the immediate area, and they knew.
They knew who you were.
Yeah, when I walked in, they were like, "Mm-mm."
Yeah, I had that issue with that bar in our hometown that has a guy's name. The one, you know which one I'm talking about. I walked in there one time with some mutual friends of ours. I was 19, maybe 20. And he looked up from his news. It was the middle of the fucking day. We had no business being there, but we were going to go play pool, air quotes. And we walked in.
Good times.
He looked up from his newspaper and said, "Are your mom and dad with you?" And I said, "No." And he goes, "Do you really think you should be here then?" No. I hadn't seen him in 10 years. I do favor both of my parents strongly. So I was just like, how the fuck does he know who Oh, God, I do look like Leroy. All right. My bad. But yeah, no, we went to Joker's with a guy that went to your high school. And he had a fake ID, not a fake ID. He had a altered ID. Mm-hmm. So he got shit-faced at Joker's, and then on our way to take him home, he puked out the side of my Yugo. Yes, I owned a Yugo. He puked out the side of my Yugo down the side of it. And I know that you have to clean that shit off within 24 hours, otherwise it eats paint and stuff like that. So I deliver him home, and his mother comes out and said, "If you come back here in the morning, I will have him clean your car." And I was like, all right. And she was like, make sure it's early. Come here early. So I showed up at 8:30 in the morning because it's early for me. And she shoved him out into my car. And we went to wash it yourself with a spray wand. And she was like, don't come back till the car's clean. So he had to hose my whole car down, hungover as fuck. He only got 5 hours of sleep after I dropped him off. Yeah. So you people who puke on car, I can't say much. I puked in a car, but not on a car.
The problem is when I puked out her car, I didn't make it completely out the window. So it flew back into her car. And then it smelled like puke. And she was married and had kids at the time. And at the time she lived in my...
Did you puke in her car seats?
No, because we were in her husband's car. But I still lived at home with my mom and dad at the time, and they lived in the same neighborhood. And so we had to... her poor husband, because she can't cut chicken, weak stomach, and so he had to clean it, and I'm so sorry. It was bad. And then I get home, and my dad was never even a Bengals fan, but he was just giving me shit, and when I walked in the door, he was like, "Who dey? How about them Bengals?" And I'm like, "I don't want to talk about it," and just went to my room and went to sleep. And then the next morning he was like, did you have fun at the game? And I was like, I got really drunk at the game. And he was like, you weren't driving though, right? And I'm like, no.
I was just
I provide, that's the thing. I provide the tickets and then the other person drives.
Oh,
So I have a deal with my one friend. She's a single mom and, doesn't make a lot of money. So I buy concert tickets because she wouldn't otherwise get to go to a concert.
Nice.
And that's the deal. She drives my drunk ass. And
and there's a reason why I never have, because you always want to go see the fucking Dave Matthews Band around our birthday, and I don't want to.
I saw them 14 times in college.
Fuck you.
I'm like at 20.
Do you guys play disc golf also?
No.
Actually,
and I don't
my
hacky
boyfriend does.
sack.
I like one song he says, Crash Into Me, where he says, lift up your skirt and show your world to me.
That's Crash.
Okay.
That's Crash, yeah.
That's the only line of any song he's ever made that I'm like, that's hot.
I've never seen I've seen him over 20 times, and it's never been the same show.
Yeah, it's never.
I have Rage Against the Machine tickets though. Like, I have an eclectic.
I would do that with you, but I'm not going to go watch a guy who plays his guitar near his chin. I'm not. I'm not.
Oh, but the people watching.
No.
You would enjoy the people watching.
Although that would then make it so that I couldn't go see what's his name, Jack Johnson. He also plays his guitar. Near his chin.
Because the people watching at Dave though, it's funny because it's like you have the older crowd who like grew up listening to Dave.
Yeah.
And then you still have the frat boys and their wife beaters and their cargo shorts, and then you have the dirty hippies.
Right.
So it's an interesting.
It's an eclectic
I
crowd.
would not be able to find you at Riverfront. You would wander the fuck off.
No, usually at a Dave
then I just go
concert,
sit in my car.
Usually at a Dave show, like, because I always get lawn seats because I refuse to pay for pavilion seats.
Yeah,
Well,
lawn
not to
seats
mention
are
you
what
have
you
to
need
sit
for
on
Dave.
top of people.
Sometimes it
if
depends.
you get there early enough, you can get your
Just
own.
like the
You bring a blanket, you mark out your spot, and you're good.
So the outdoor theater, the two that we have here in the area, I will not pay for seats. I'll pay for the lawn because I don't want to sit like it's movie theater. Movie theater seating.
Yeah. I just every time I look for pavilion seats for like Dave, I'm like, I'm not paying that much.
I've done one time I did pavilion seats with Dave, and it was really funny because the people on like either side of us like were smoking pot, and I can't because I have a bad reaction to it. So, but like,
Really, I just fall asleep.
well,
Mom, sorry.
I vomit and then immediately fall asleep.
Oh
so.
no, that's not good.
Yeah, so I
I
had a
friend who
just
did
go to
that.
sleep.
Like 20 minutes vomit, fall asleep. 20 minutes vomit, like no matter what form it's in. But so I've only been in the pavilion once, and it was like people were passing joints around you. But like the people that were passing joints, like I swear they were 20 years older than me on either side of us.
Yeah, probably.
And then I will say I enjoy Dave Matthews Band in concert more than I do on the radio.
yes.
Because one, they're more of a jam band. Two, Dave Matthews is not the main reason I go to see Dave Matthews. I love Boyd Tinsley. Like him on that electric violin thing is just the hottest thing you'll ever see.
So you're not in love with the whole what do you?
No. Boyd Tinsley on that electric like violin thing is like
I love the band, but I also like Dave.
I do too,
I mean,
but-
and I don't like. They're probably them and OAR are probably the most jam band. Like, I hate Fish. Like, I can't stand Fish. Like the band.
I never
Fish.
listened to Fish.
Every time I'm like, ugh. It's just not my. I'm not like a big Deadhead. I don't like the Grateful Dead.
I think our friends.
Matter of fact, I like Sublime's cover Scarlet Begonias
I
a lot
love
better
Sublime.
than.
I liked Sublime, but I liked Sublime when Bradley was still alive.
So I've actually seen Sublime with Rome.
Yeah.
They opened for 311, and he's really good.
Really?
Very good. It's kind of creepy because if you close your eyes, it's almost as if it's Bradley.
Makes me very sad. I mean, whenever I hear their music, it makes me sad. It also makes me sad to know that at the same time I was getting to know Sublime, I was also getting to know Cake, and those are like 80-year-old guys making music, and they're not that old. But when you're 25, and Cake made that Yellow album, something Nugget. fucking know what the hell it was. The one with the, I want a girl with a short skirt and a long jacket. And all
I
the
like
other
that
shit
song
they know.
because it had my first car in it.
So we were going through such a side
I had a
story.
Chrysler LeBaron.
There was a strike happening on this Air Force base that we were visiting to go see our friends after my friend and I got out of the military. And we were driving through the strike line as we were playing... I cannot remember the song. It was basically like you fucking get what you get and something about chicken nugget. I don't really remember what it was, but we were obnoxious and blaring it out of an Oldsmobile. That was the time where I discovered Cake. And then I looked them up and I was like, and by look them up, I mean like got an AOL and looked them up, and I did not realize that they were old enough to be my dad at the time they were making music. Same thing with Violent Femmes. I love the Violent Femmes. I was like, those are middle-aged dudes.
They were one of my first concerts. But they were playing at like the college that was next, like in our little tiny small town. And like I remember going, and I was in high school at the time, and like there was nobody there.
I didn't realize when I was listening to them. So like the same thing when you listen to the White Stripes, you don't realize there's just two instruments that are happening. So then when you pay attention, I was like, there's only three instruments, three voices. God, they make a lot of noise for that. But they had some subversive shit. Yeah. And I love them.
Foo Fighters' first album, Dave Grohl literally did everything. He played every instrument and did the vocals on that. It wasn't until after their first album that he got.
You would never guess that the dumbass on the Grammys that swung was he the one, or it was their? He was the drummer on the Grammys. Whatever happened to the bass player? Because the bass player threw his bass up into the air and then immediately got nailed with it in the head.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Was that Foo Fighters?
No, it was when it was Nirvana.
Oh,
like the one time I think that that Nirvana played like on the Grammys or American Music Awards.
There was an MTV Music Awards where it might have been one of either Nirvana or maybe it was Foo Fighters because Nirvana was done by then. Like one of them climbed up into like the scaffolding or whatever it was,
like Eddie Vedder style. Eddie's already done that, dude.
Yeah, and I'm like, I don't, it's the 90s, and I'm like, what are you doing up there? Like,
no, it distinctly was either AMAs or Grammys, and it was Nirvana because there were just the three of them, right? Mm-hmm. And I think so. Dave was on. I don't know who was on bass. Dave was on drums. Kurt was up front with the guitar.
Chris Novak? Chris.
Maybe that's who it was. Oh, the dude that was married to Electra, Carmen Electra. Was that who it was?
Oh, no, that's Dave Navarro.
Wasn't Dave Navarro in it?
No, he was in Jane's Addiction.
Never mind. So whoever was playing bass,
it's Chris Novak. He ran for like fucking city manager, some bullshit.
So yeah, it was him who threw his bass guitar up into the air and then misjudged the landing, and it knocked him in the head. And then they just cut away to commercial.
I mean,
but
as you would.
I did not realize for the longest time, because I didn't know the name of the guy who played the drums in Nirvana.
Yeah.
Who the fuck cared? And then Foo Fighters came out, and you go and look up who they are, and I was like, no shit.
You're thinking of Pat Smear.
Is that who I am thinking?
So there was
his name is Pat Smear.
Yes.
That has to be a joke.
It's either that or it's Christ Novo.
I'm sorry. No, that's
Novoselic?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, that's how I feel about the woke girl in my family law class. Like, she seems like a very nice person, but when she talks, I'm just like, I can't control my face. And it's over Zoom, so yeah, you have to. And that's the nice thing about my new laptop that I had to break down and buy, was because it's got a button that just turns your camera off. So usually when she starts talking, I just hit that and I'm like,
turn your camera off.
Yeah, because like the race and law class that we had, it was I I couldn't take the full 6 weeks because I was already taking 2 classes and working full time. And I'm like, nope, plate's already full.
Yeah.
I would love to take it because it sounds very interesting. But the professor who's teaching it, I had her for a class. So she was like, here's an extra credit opportunity. You can audit one of the classes.
Yeah.
And the one that I audited was like the history of the Ku Klux Klan.
Okay.
In which, did you know that Dayton was like at one time top 6 in membership?
Miamisburg was a sundown town.
Yeah.
Jamestown was.
Yeah.
So, because you guys were talking about sundown towns, and my dad grew up in one in Indiana. But it was funny because I didn't know that Miamisburg was one.
Yeah.
But so we had a guest speaker, and he went to an auction in Oregonia, like down near Caesars Creek.
Yeah.
And what was for sale? It was an estate auction. It was a lot of Ku Klux Klan stuff. So he's a black man, and he bought up a lot of it. And
So that nobody else could have it.
pretty much. And so that was part of the class, was his stuff that he's collected over the years. And then he told the story about Oregonia, and I kind of giggled because I'm like, I used to live in Spring Valley, which is like right down the street from there. And Small Town Murder did Waynesville. It was a Waynesville murder. It's early because I just started Small Town Murder.
Oh, okay.
So,
They do one in Fairfield, Ohio at some point,
yeah,
too. There's like 3 of them they've done in Ohio.
Eaton also early on. But the Waynesville one they just covered, but they always do like demographics and like tell you a little bit about the town.
Yeah.
And Waynesville apparently was like really big on the Underground Railroad. And I did not know that. And they have a little museum that I guess will explain all of that. Yeah. But when they were talking about it, I giggled because I audited this class where I'm like, really? Because right down the road there's like Klan. So yeah. It's kind of hilarious that the Quakers were like hiding slaves, and literally right down the road is like Klanville.
Yeah.
So, but
I feel like that makes it more impressive.
Yeah. So, like, this class, like, you know, he speaks and, you know, we have open discussion. Like the professor says at the beginning, it's a safe space, like, and it's a variety of different races, and it's faculty and whatnot. Cause, like, on the little Zoom thing, and I'm like, oh, you run our office, and oh, you're the guy who sends the email about the survey. Like, you know, stuff like that. So, because it's a free class, it's just informational.
Yeah.
And so you could, for the extra credit purpose, you only had to sit for like the first hour or whatever. Well, I chose to stay for the whole thing, and it turns into just a very open discussion. And the professor who runs it, I think she's a little too smart to be teaching. So she graduated from an HBCU, and then I believe she has 2 bachelors. She got her legal studies degree from Sinclair and then went to law school after that. And she's African American, and she has a son I've actually met him. He's maybe like 7. And so with a lot of like Tamir Rice and things like that, she has to sit down with her child and have these conversations on what he can and cannot do. And so she talks about that, but we're sitting around, you know, basically having these open conversations, and it gets to me, and I'm like, you know, I think it's important that we have these uncomfortable conversations, because that's the only way people are going to understand where people come from.
Right.
Is if you sit down and have the uncomfortable conversation. And I, you know, explain like my background and stuff like that, and then the woke girl starts talking, and she's white, blonde hair, blue-eyed, and she's a very nice person, like very nice person. But I swear to God, if she said old white men one more time, because I'm like thinking of my dad.
Yeah.
You know, my dad was 76 when he died. He was an old white man,
right.
and he was raised in a not very open-minded.
No.
I mean, he was born during World War II, so like you have that, and it's not like the Depression generation was a very loving group. And
Yeah.
I believe them adopting me was a big contention on his side of the family. Like his parents, my grandparents didn't come over for the first 6 months I was around. Like,
Yeah.
they didn't agree with it. His grandma and grandpa were, well, I shouldn't say grandpa, like grandma was not a very nice person. And you don't want to speak ill of the dead, but she's the type, though, like, you'd have dinner with them, and my dad would go to the bathroom, and while he was gone, she would tell me that you'd be pretty if you lost some weight.
No.
You could be pretty if you tried. You should try, and then you'd be pretty.
Generations get better.
Yeah,
That's my hope. Generations get better.
And like she would say shit like that to me, but she wouldn't say anything like that to anybody else.
Right.
It was always just the me. And so she had cancer, and she eventually passed away. But the night of the last tornado, not this last one, but the one that hit my hometown before that,
the
early 2000s.
Yeah.
She had called my mom, and she wanted Honey Nut Cheerios, and she was a very demanding woman, so you know, had to. So my mom asked, she was like, will you go and get them? And I'm like, what the hell grocery store is even open? Like, a tornado just came through town.
Yeah.
Like, are you kidding me? So I find Honey Nut Cheerios, and I take them to her and run them in. I've got friends in the car, you know, like just running in. And she told me that she loved me. And I was like, yeah, I love you too, Grandma. And just left. And I was like, holy shit. My friends are like, what? And I'm like, Grandma just told me she loved me for the first time. And the joke became, of course, she had to tell the brown person in the family. Like, that's how she was going to get in heaven. Like, she had to tell the brown person in the family she loved them. And when I remember the funeral, my aunt gave me a hug, and as she's got an even darker sense of humor than me. She sang "Ding Dong, the Wicked Witch is Dead" in my ear as we're standing in the receiving line, and I'm like, okay, like that's even bad for me. Like,
Yeah.
that's very uncomfortable. Way to go.
So
Nancy.
you talked about the uncomfortable conversation. And you and I have talked previously, like, there's no other way to put this. How did you learn to be black? I mean, there's an existence,
like,
but you didn't have the conversation that a black mother and father would have with their children.
Because very early on, I come from a family where my dad was big, like, my parents are big on education. Like, you don't have to have a college degree per se, but the thing was, you get a skilled trade or you get a college degree. They wanted both, but you got one or the other because you need to be self-sufficient and be able to live. Plus, I mean, I think all parents, you know, picture their children succeeding in whatever it is that they do. They don't want you, not that there's anything wrong with working at a fast food restaurant forever or anything like that. It's just not what they envision for their kids. And I think when it came to me, we went to the library. I mean, I learned my Black history from books. I didn't learn it from conversations with the family or things like that. And this is pre-internet, so this was the card catalog days where
I miss card catalogs.
Yeah,
I do too.
It smelled good.
and so like I mean, my parents kept my hair very short when I was a kid because they didn't know how to take care of it. It's 7th grade, and I met another mixed girl. I mean, we're opposites. My biological father's Black, and my biological mother's white. Hers were opposite, and she's very light complected, but she has Black people hair, and so she would come home with me after school, and she taught me how to do my hair the way it's supposed to be done. And I mean, I learned from other people pretty much. And Mom also like put me in back when I was a kid. They had So the area we're from, there are 2 large HBCUs, historical Black college universities, and there was a group of women who started a group for African American girls, and they didn't care if you had 1 drop or you were, you could be light as can be or be as dark as can be. They wanted an environment where it was basically women supporting women, and they did a bunch of things. It was a safe place to talk about things, and you learned about skincare and like hair and stuff like that. And I remember though at the luncheon, because they hosted, like, one of the women opened up her home and she had a luncheon and you were to bring your moms. It was probably the only time I was embarrassed. I mean, to have my mom, because it's mom was the only white lady there. So, and it's sad. It's not like I'm embarrassed about my mom, but it was, I think, the one time that I was kind of uncomfortable. Situation. Yeah, it was kind of uncomfortable because growing up where I grew up, it's a diverse kind of area, but the neighborhood I grew up in, it's not. It's very white, and there's nothing wrong with that either, but it's just one of those things where, looking back and I'm like, damn, that was kind of bad that I wasn't, but you're in 5th grade.
When you're that age, I feel like you get embarrassed by a lot of different things. And so that would be embarrassing.
Yes.
Did you ever talk to your mom about like her experience going to that?
No.
Okay.
No. So they get very uncomfortable when we talk about race.
Okay. Your parents do?
Oh, yeah. Very uncomfortable. It's funny. It was probably more so when I was a kid, they would just kind of brush stuff off.
Yeah.
They would answer the question, or I don't know that answer, so we will take you to somebody who can answer that. But the older I got, I guess, because the more
questions got harder.
And
and they probably, as parents, wanted you to just feel welcome and
and they didn't have the experience that you were asking about.
They also didn't have the conversation a lot of my Black friends' parents had with them about what you do when you're pulled over by the police and things like that. So the first time I got pulled over, I didn't understand why I was being treated the way I was being treated, because I'm like, I'm being respectful to you. Like, why are you not being respectful to me? Because, my dad being a cop, that was his whole thing. You show respect to the police officer, they're going to show respect to you.
Yeah.
And
nine
times out of 10, that has happened to me. I have a lead foot, so I've been pulled over a lot. And I have had those experiences. Like, I remember when I moved to the no stoplight town, I lived there less than a month, and I was floating down the state route. I was running late to work. Like normal, and running late to everything. Yeah. And it's at the time, I think it was 55, and I was pushing 80. Like, just pedal to the floor going. And the sheriff is going, he's heading southbound. I'm going northbound. And when I saw him, I let off the gas, and then I saw him in my rear view turn around. I was like, God damn.
You've never been more my dude friend that has boobs than you using directions. Fucking, I was going directionally south.
Well, it's funny
north,
though.
I don't know what that means.
It's only because
you were going towards that town or away from that one.
I was heading towards hometown.
Yeah,
heading away from the valley. I don't know if people will get that, but
we're just assuming most of the people who listen to this are from Ohio, and only people we know.
Well, yeah, so
we do have a couple from India and Germany. Hi, guys.
Hi.
So he pulled me over, and he gave me numerous chances to try to give him some kind of excuse. Big hurry this morning. I was like, yeah, man, I'm running late, like miscalculated time. I got to be at work. And he was like, family emergency or anything? Nope, just running late to work. Like, I'm not gonna lie to you. Like, this is I took too long. Like, I'm running late. And I don't know, he was cool to me, and I was cool back at him, and he kind of joked with me a few times, and he's like, you sure you don't have any? And I was like, nope, just I gotta make it to Beaver Creek. Like, sorry, officer. And he was like, all right, well, you were very nice to me, so I'm going to knock this down a few miles, which pretty sure he saved my driver's license on that one.
Yeah,
and
apparently
you get so much
from
over your-
experience,
I think it's 20
74 is way different than 75.
Yeah. So, and then he'd said, this was right after the old judge had been voted out. And he was like, the current judge, likes to know how people treat us when we give them a ticket. And he's like, so I'm going to write on here that you were very nice and very polite and, whatnot. And he's like, I don't know if it'll help you, when you pay your
I also
fine.
want to know if it only happened to brown people and not white people.
Yeah, maybe. And
Brown person was nice.
So, and I was like, oh, well, thanks. Like, I was just like, cool, man. I was like, thanks a lot. And I was like, I appreciate you being really nice to me. And he was like, I'm one of those. I give what I receive. He was like, if you're not nice to me, then I can get an attitude with you. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. And I was like, well, thank you. And he was like, did you just thank me for a ticket? And I was like, yeah, I guess I kind of did. And I was like, not for the ticket, but and he was like, I know what you meant. He was like, be safe driving and slow down. And I was like, yes, sir. But, when I was 17, I got yanked out of my car because I matched the description. So, and, there was another time when I was leaving a friend's house in one of the prominent local areas, and I drive pretty shitty cars.
Oh, we've talked about this area before. It's Oakwood, where the guy told me that I had a light out and then proceeded to hold the flashlight while I got my hands dirty.
I believe I call it the hoity-toity neighborhood.
Yeah.
So I had friends who lived there, and they were having like some kind of get together, and I stopped by after work, and at the time I was driving like a 90s something, and it was far from the 90s. So I already looked too poor to be in
the neighborhood
in
you were in.
Oakwood, and the fact that I'm a few shades darker than the majority of the people who live there. And so I got pulled over. I think he said it was a license plate light, which that's always like the go-to when I'm in like small, like either Richie Rich towns or
The
like
license plate light?
Yeah, so it's illegal for
That one bulb.
Yeah, that bulb right above your
bulb
license
has
plate.
to
Yeah.
illuminate that.
Yeah.
I was in Hillsborough once, and they pulled us over for a license
You
plate
notice
light.
how many huge fucking Jeeps around Centerville and Oakwood have illegal light colors, and they don't get pulled over for shit.
Yeah, I also find it really weird nowadays too that people don't put their temp tags on which I understand like being stolen, but the problem is nowadays the cargo units are so tinted you can't see, so it looks like they have no plate.
Yeah,
and I've never seen one of them get pulled over.
Yeah,
but so
yeah, you were in that town.
He pulled me over. He had asked where I was coming from, and I was like, a friend's house. Friend was having a party, and have you had anything to drink? And I was like, no, actually I haven't. Like, I drank water because I'd just gotten off work, and I think I had to work the next day or something like that. I was being
There had to be a reason why you weren't drinking.
And I think also like the drive, like driving from there to where I used to live, and this was pre-Uber, so plus where I used to live, you couldn't get an Uber out of town. You could get one home, but you couldn't get one out. But so, it was like, told me why he pulled me over, asked for my license, registration, and proof of insurance. And when I went to reach for it, apparently I was scary, and he drew his weapon, and I immediately threw my hands up, and it was like, and he was like, you move kind of quick, and I was like, I was just following what you asked. Like, I don't know how to react and things like that. I wasn't told how to react and things like that. So needless to say, I didn't get a ticket that night, and I was told to drive safely home. And it was the same with the time I got yanked out of the car. Like, I didn't get a ticket. He pulled me over in a turn lane where I was leaving a neighborhood. there's like the main drag through the neighborhood, and then it was turning onto like the next main drag to go home. And I'm pulling up to at the time it was a stop sign. Now I think it's a light, but it's, the turn lanes, and he straight up pulled me over, and the left turn lane would not let me pull over to the side of the road, and then proceeded to, my white friend got to stay in the car. He took me out and questioned me at the trunk. And then,
what was his excuse for pulling you over?
I matched the description, which is their excuse for everything. Like,
there isn't shit going on in the town that we're talking about. Yeah. So nobody matched anything.
And, I don't know, like, it was the first time I'd ever been treated like that, so I was crying, and then I went immediately home and told my mom, and of course my mom doesn't understand. Yeah. Well, what did you do?
Right.
I didn't do anything. Like, I was
brown.
I didn't do anything.
Did you know right then that it was...
No. Honestly, I didn't start realizing that shit until I was, like, late. Like, I was in my late 20s, early 30s. And, I mean, I'll be 40 in July. So it was later in life. And that's the thing with, like, some of the stuff. It's not the overt things. It's the...
microaggressions?
Yeah, like... and because I'm not one of those people, like... I don't think everything is racist because, and I feel like when you say like little things that are, that takes away from the bigger issues.
Things that are.
Right.
Like, because when something really does happen, it's like the boy who cried wolf.
Right.
People don't believe you or things like that. But I also, so when it comes to work, I work in another kind of high pollutant area.
Yeah.
It's near the military base. So it is diverse, but it's also not.
Yeah.
I don't know if it has to do with the job that I have or, because I'm, my skin tone, but the surprise in people's voices. You read? Yeah. I love to read. Like, I don't... like when I've told people, I go to school part-time and I work full-time. Oh, what are you going to school for? Legal studies. Really? It's those things that it's like, I don't know what you're like surprised by.
Well, so when I hear that, it's like it's a double-sided knife too, because it's like, are they saying that because of your skin color, or are they saying that because of what your full-time job is?
Yes.
And so they're surprised by what the other thing is you're going into.
But does it feel different than when a dude is like, you know about fantasy football? I mean...
Oh, that just pisses me off. When it comes to, like, I hate to be talked down to. Now, and it doesn't matter if I know about the subject we're talking about. I have friends who are super smart, multiple degrees in intelligence, work in intel, and have never spoken down to me on, they're not condescending when they explain something you don't understand.
Yeah.
So I despise being talked down to like I'm an idiot. I'm not stupid. Like, I might not completely understand what you're talking about, but I can at least follow along. I mean, I have friends who are engineers. Like, half the shit they talk about I glaze over and might not understand, but...
Well, that's because they're boring.
Yeah.
That's how I feel when I'm talking to my partner. I'm like, what?
But you can still, like, you follow along with it, and they don't need to be condescending about it.
Right.
So when it comes to guys in sports, my favorite thing is to make them feel as small as possible. Especially, like, for instance, I was cutting a guy's hair and we're talking. So my mask that I wear at work, I have 3 different. I have an Ohio State one, and I have 2 different Tennessee Titans ones. Those are typically the ones I wear to work. And one guy was telling me, we were talking fantasy, and he was like, do you want some help? And I was like, no, I'm good. And I don't play in a season-long league anymore, but I played, like, FanDuel and DraftKings.
So like a week to week thing.
Yes, and so I can play when I want and whatnot. And I'm still playing on the $10 that I loaded 6 years ago. So I do enough to just keep playing. That's more. I'm not winning $1 million.
You just do it for fun because you like doing it,
right?
Yeah.
So I was talking to a guy about it, and he's like, I can give you some fantasy football advice. And I was like, oh, you can? And he was like, yeah. And I was like, how'd you do last year? Did you win? Like, where'd you place in your league? And he was like, oh, no. I was like, down at the bottom. I was like, I'm a champion, so I don't need your help. I got to go see Red Hot Chili Peppers on the floor because I won my fantasy football league.
Nice.
The ladies bought my Chili Pepper tickets.
Nice.
We had fun in Louisville. But Louisville's
I'm
dangerous
jealous
because
that you're that close to Anthony Kiedis because I don't care how dirty he looks. He's hot.
Yeah. And Louisville's dangerous because their last call, their bars are open till like 4. And so we're like at a bar and it's like 2:15 and my friend, she was like, do you want another? And I was like, check the time. And I'm like, nah, dude, we should probably go back to the hotel. And she's like, are you sure? Their bars are open till like 4. And I was like, yeah, that sounds like we're going to get arrested. So
Yeah.
let's just go back to the hotel room.
Yeah.
Like,
when I lived in Panama City, that was the first thing to adjust to. Actually, the second thing to adjust to. The first thing to adjust to was that you're in the Central Time Zone.
Oh, yeah.
I'm like, I'm south of Ohio. I'm confused. Why? And then if you
throws me off with that,
Yeah,
because
and if you-
Nashville
right.
is
And if you go to Tallahassee, someplace between Panama City Beach and Tallahassee, it becomes the East Coast. So that was the first thing to adjust to, that all of my shows were on at 8, not 9.
Yeah.
The other thing was that bars are open till 4, last call at 4:15.
Yeah.
And so when shit wasn't closing at 2, I'm like, but we drank like it was going to close at 2. And they're like, no, the band is even going to play till like 3:30. Fuck yes!
Yeah.
It was it was not good. Although I was very well behaved in Panama City because I had to take care of somebody else.
oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you've been the recipient of that. There are times when I have to take care of somebody else, and that just happened to last for 2.5 years.
Yeah, that was my excellent lesson from Vegas because nothing closes.
But weirdly, stuff does close because my friend used
Some
to
things
live.
do.
My friend used to live there,
Yeah.
and every time I would go out to visit,
Yeah.
I would be surprised when we would like go someplace, and I was like, "Why is this bar closing this time?" I'm like,
Right.
"Isn't your shit just open all the time?"
So there were certain bars and clubs and things like that would have actual closing times. But when you worked in the service industry, when you lived in Vegas,
Yes.
there were places that you knew that you went to that I would end up driving home at 6:30 in the morning
Yeah.
to go home to go to bed. And so that was
She ended up at a
lifelong
party
lesson.
She ended up at a party once where Flavor Flav made her chicken wings.
Oh, he was fantastic.
Yeah.
Flavor Flav was by far, like, he was one of the
Yep.
best gems of Vegas when I lived there. Yeah.
And she was seeing a guy.
You're
thought he
probably
was-
living out there at the same time she was.
Might have been.
Probably. I can't remember when she moved out there though.
It
How old
was.
am I?
Because I know where I was living. I had just moved out of my parents' house, and I was living in the house at the foot of the Hood Apartments.
I
What year
turned
were you?
25
I was-
there. So
12 years ago.
2008? 2007? 2007, I think.
Somewhere in there.
Yeah, somewhere
Because
there.
I drove out with her and then flew home, and then I would go out to visit. I still have a girlfriend who lives out there.
Yeah.
I love her to death. Absolutely love her. But she's one of those people in small doses.
Yeah.
Like, I couldn't go and stay with her.
Yeah.
It would be like, hey, I'm coming to town, and I don't even want to go back.
Yeah.
And it'd be like, I can hang out one night.
Right.
And then
That's what Vegas turned into. It was a lesson in the long game. Mm-hmm. You learned how to last until 6:30 in the morning,
Yeah.
drive your ass home, and then you would sleep until 4 o'clock when you had to get up and then go to work again the next night.
one of the last times I went out there, my friend was dating this dude who was living with him, and I'm one of those, I have to be comfortable where if I don't know you, I'm not staying at your house.
Yeah.
And
See the douche that came back here?
No.
Okay.
But equally douchey. So she was living with him, and I was like, yeah, I'm going to get a hotel. And so my mom insisted I stay on the Strip, and I'm like, but I want to be closer to like where she's at.
Yeah.
And it's not safe. And I'm like, the Strip's not that safe.
Yeah.
So she insisted I go on the Strip. So I stayed in the old ass, it's not even open anymore. The Sahara was the last place I stayed.
The Sahara is, it imploded.
Yeah.
I was there when it imploded.
I want to say shortly after I stayed there.
Yeah.
And so I also didn't realize how far down the Strip it was.
Yeah, it was down at the very end.
But so
well, north side.
we went to this bar called the Outside Inn. It was like where her and her boyfriend would hang out near their house. And so it was apparently people from Ohio had started it. So they had like Ohio State stuff and like kayak and canoe stuff in there. And it was pretty chill.
Yeah.
So we went there and drank and whatnot. And so we're drunk walking back through the park to their house. And I'm looking at my friend. I'm like, you able to drive back to the hotel? And he was like, no, you can just stay. I have a spare room. And I was like, no, I'm good. And he was like, well, she can't drive you. And I was like, that's cool. Can you call me a cab?
I don't want to be molested.
Yeah.
Like, it's cool. Like, call me a cab. You're probably going to pay as much for the cab ride as what you are a night, per night in your hotel room. And I was like,
I already have the room.
I was like, that's cool. Like, can you just go ahead and call me a cab? And he lived in a gated community.
Oh.
So, but it was funny because when we got there, the house looked like what condos here look like.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, you live in a condo? No, it's a house. Okay, bro, because
That's
back
fucking
home,
townhouse,
that's a condo. So,
Yeah.
sorry.
Maybe a townhouse.
Like, yeah, so I was, the last time it was like 08, 09, because it was right after the market collapsed. Because right next to the Sahara, they had mid-build a hotel and had to just stop.
Yeah.
That's what all of Panama City Beach looked like.
Yeah.
And like I think the Cosmopolitan Hotel may have either just opened or was getting ready to open. Like
I think some Cosmopolitan opened after I left, so
It took a long time to
you
open,
were probably
too.
there 2 years after me. So I want to say Cosmopolitan opened like in 2008, 2009.
It was later than... I feel like it was later
Was
than
it
that.
later than that?
Because it was the newest hotel on the Strip.
Yeah.
Because so when we went to Hymns there... because Vegas loves hymns. There's like 75,000 people descending on the city at one time. The guy got a late reservation because they block off so many rooms. And by
Right.
the time they realized he was coming, the only block that they could get him into was the Cosmopolitan. And it was under 5 years old. And that had to have been within the past 6 years.
No, because the Cosmopolitan was there a while ago. Because when I left, I was there, I want to say 2007. Because I know I started my job here in 2008. So I moved back probably at the end of 2007. So I think I was there from 2006 to 2007. But then I went back to visit probably 5 years after I moved back home. And when I went back there, Cosmopolitan had been built.
Okay.
And I was like, oh, that's a new fucking hotel. Actually, there were like 2 or 3 new hotels that had been built when I went back there. And I was like, what the fuck just happened? Because I don't recognize half of the Strip.
Yeah, I don't understand Las Vegas. I don't understand why you have to walk up and down so many fucking escalators.
It's
that's
ridiculous.
what irritated me because
Can I just not walk down the sidewalk? No,
from-
because there's an escalator.
Right.
from the time that because her and I went out there when we were 21, and then because I was like my first vacation without my parents, and then when she moved, I went back with her.
Yeah.
And the last time I had went, they had those where they forced you into the hotels.
Yeah.
And I was like, I want to go to Sephora and it's down there. Why do I have to walk through Paris and the Venetian and like all of this to get to the damn Sephora store? Like, that's all I wanted to do.
Yeah, it depends on which side of the Strip you're on. And honestly, it's whenever you're going to go to Vegas, it's always in your best interest to download maps of not only where you want to go, but of each of the hotels and kind of piece them together and make your own little map of everything.
Yeah.
Which is what I did. So that way you could find out when you needed to walk on the Strip or when you needed to go into the hotels or like But it's a whole process, especially because they used to have, so they have a monorail on the one side.
Yeah, so, yeah, I got a story about that, too.
But then they used to have a monorail on the other side. And then a hotel got built that chopped it off, and then they ended the monorail and got rid of it. And then they were going to build a new one, but then, as far as I know, it never got rebuilt, but it might be now, because I've
So
been
when I was out there the last time, they had the monorail, at least on my side, because
Which
Sahara was one of the hubs for it. But so I was out there visiting my friends, so they had to work during the day, and I was like, that's cool. Like, it was funny because one of my friends texted, and she was like, hey, what are you doing? And I was like, laying in my bed watching Sports Center, and she was like, but you're on vacation. I was like, this is my idea of vacation.
Right.
Like, I'm doing what I want to do. Like, I'm gonna go shop later, but it's 112 degrees outside.
Yeah,
Like,
nobody wants to go outside.
It's ridiculously hot. So, I text my friend and I say, hey, where's that Sephora store? And she tells me where it's at. And I'm like, all right, can I walk there? And she was like, should have known. Their response was, some people do. And I'm like, okay.
Yeah, Vegas blocks are not normal blocks.
Yeah, so I take off, and that's the other thing is I forgot that it's a dry heat, so when you're in the shade, it seems a lot cooler than what it actually is when you get out. And so I start walking, and I'm like, damn, it's really hot. And then there's somebody selling water, and I'm like, cool, here's $1, let me get a bottle of water. And I chug that water, and then there's another person selling water, and I'm like, cool, let me get another bottle of water. And then I hit like a Walgreens that reminded me of like Tiffany and Company, because only a Walgreens on the strip of Vegas would have like the awnings.
Was it the Walgreens by Lush? Near Parisian?
I don't remember Lush, but
it's the first time I ever went to a Walgreens that like had lanes and
it was
like bigger than a liter bottle of Dasani.
Yeah.
I'm like, I would like all of them.
So I'm like pouring sweat, and I walk in there and get the biggest damn bottle of water I can get, and I finally make it to Sephora, and I'm apologizing to the lady because I'm like dying, just sweating, and she's like, where'd you walk from? And I'm like, Sahara. And she's like, oh. And I'm like, how? Like, I didn't realize how far it was.
Yeah.
So then I get like back, I had done some other shopping and whatnot, and I get back, and my other friend was like, why didn't you take the monorail? And I was like, what the fuck are you talking about? And she was like, you didn't see the signs in your hotel? And I'm like, no, like, you live here. Like,
you should have told me to look for them.
Heads up would have been nice. So, yeah. We did take the monorail, though, to Paris, because the guy she was dating, his brother is a hypnotist on the Strip.
Okay.
So we got free tickets and went and saw that. And, I mean, it was entertaining. It was awkward in the bathroom afterward, though, because I didn't get hypnotized, but some of the people from the show, and like the very last thing he does is when he shakes your hand and he's bringing you out of it, basically he tells you that you're going to show your O face. And so he's shaking their hand, and you know, people are having an orgasm or whatever, and several of the women were coming into the bathroom as we're walking out, and I'm like, oh, I can't look you in the eye. Like, this is so awkward. This is so awkward.
Oh my God.
And you have no idea what happened, apparently. So
yeah, that's date rapey.
Yeah,
I don't know.
It's a little weird.
I'm not sure how it would go now.
I don't trust hypnotists. I don't know.
I hate when they come to Ohio, and I'm like, I don't want to go. And the one friend, how we met, they were like, the hypnotists are the best things ever. And I was like, no, the fucking comedians are the best things ever. And I really wish that they would go to our local club instead of going to that fucking one in the mall. But whatever. I don't care. I'm still not going to go see a hypnotist. But thank you for joining us.
yeah, thanks for having me. It
This
was
is a
fun.
horrible transition on my part. But hopefully you'll come back.
Oh yeah, definitely. I had fun.
I am the segue queen.
Segueing when you're drinking is not easy.
Just changed. It's an ADD feature where I'm like,
This
let's
is-
talk about something else.
This is why we have can openings and ice cubes.
Yeah. Brandy does the most amazing job at editing and making me make sense.
All right,
and
you're flattering me, but also I don't, but thank you. I do what I can.
If you saw on Facebook recently, I posted a picture of her editing, and it's getting to be spring and summertime here, and she's sitting outside a wine bar with a bottle of wine. I'm not really sure how episode 5 turned out. I haven't listened
yet. You know what? It comes out okay. I only did the first half at the wine bar because, once you drink a bottle of wine, then you got to stop and then go home and go to bed.
It was a beautiful photo, though.
It was a lovely day.
Oh my God!
So stop?
I don't have to, but I get real sleepy.
That's true.
Yeah. So can you tell us where we can find us?
Oh, absolutely. So if you'd like to find us on Instagram or Twitter, you can go to DBBL_podcast. If you want to look us up on Facebook or YouTube, go to DBBL space podcast. And you can go to our website, which is dbblpodcast.com or drunkbitchesbelike.com, drunkbitchesbelike.net. That's the only place we can use those words because nobody likes us to use bad words.
We just found out today that when you load us on Amazon, it says drunk boop, be like.
They like to censor us all over the place. We're still trying to get on Apple Podcasts, so please bear with us while we do that. We're still in a review process again for I don't know how many times, but we're working on it, so hopefully we'll be there soon. But if you'd like to just contact us immediately and get in touch with us over email, you can do dbblpodcast@gmail.com.
Awesome. And do us a favor, share us with your friends and family. And if you don't want to share us with your friends and family, share us with people you hate. We don't care.
That's true.
It's a punishment for them. They have to listen to cursing. Share it with the people who hate cursing the most.
That's right. Like us, don't like us. Share us with the people you like or don't like. We will take all of that love.
Oh, download us and don't listen to us. But if you do listen to us, I don't care. Even if you don't listen to us, most of your podcast apps allow you to slide right or left and give a thumbs up. And once we get on freaking Apple, you can give us stars. So if you would please give us a thumbs up on the episode or stars. If you want to give us a thumbs down or no stars, don't fucking do anything.
Don't do
Just
that.
Keep it
Go
to
away.
yourself. As the famous comedian
Yelp.
As the famous comedian Rob Haney would say, if you like us, share us with your friends. If you don't like us, maybe we just don't care about your fucking opinion that much. So, thank you so much, and we will see you soon. Cheers. Bye.
Last time she did this. So don't be scared to eat the mic.
My dream is for us to have enough money to rent a space, and we are, 18 cents into it?
What happened?
You're definitely going to have to be closer.
Sorry.
You're fine. I had all intentions of writing notes whenever I needed to cut something out with editing and everything, and really it's just my notepad to write down when she says so that I can blur it.
The first feedback we heard was, do you all ever finish a story? No. Because I can derail anybody from anything that I
totally
want.
Can.
Yeah. I think I would make a good attorney just because I would screw up the other person. They'd be like, what was I talking about? I don't know. It's your turn. It's a hell of it. Yeah, I know what I did.
This is why
gonna
I
be
have pen
so
and paper.
difficult.
This is why I have this.
Yeah, I have your name to a lot of, not your name, your initial.
Yeah.
So when you see the ones and they're like squiggle M or squiggle B, it's because it's not B.
Yeah.
It's not.
Which is fine.
Controversial. It's just,
Yeah.
It's funny because on Amazon, so I was like, Alexa, play my podcast. And so it starts playing and it says, drunk beep. and I laugh every time. It straight beeps it out.